would want
Not
that.
just, but is it going to happen? Yes. And that's
Well,
what I'm willing to
actually,
accept. You know what
but
I'm saying?
but here's the thing: it doesn't. It's not going to happen. It doesn't have to happen. The only way that it would happen is if we cede our place in the world as the world leader. What kind of message does that send to Taiwan? What kind of message does that send to China when they're?
Well, is Taiwan signed under NATO? I can't remember if they are. Do you believe in the idea that our president had something to do with 9/11? Biden's kind of mental health declining, as well as everything else, inspired people to kind of bring these things up, which I like to look into the fact.
All right, test. Can you hear me?
Yeah, how you doing, brother?
How's it going? Okay, real quick, just some ground rules because we're not only streaming on YouTube. All right, can't say
Right.
any slurs. Can't say anything.
Of course.
Yeah, it's just
No
keep
hate
it.
speech,
Yeah,
nothing like that along the lines of YouTube guidelines.
yeah. All right,
So
cool.
before we do go into the conversation, I do want to say if I do say anything that's incorrect or that sounds incorrect, you're free to fact check me whenever you feel is appropriate. I
Okay.
don't plan on really saying anything that's infactual or, at least to my knowledge, infactual. So when we first started, we were talking about what was going up during the time that from Trump to Biden, pretty much. So under one of these things, you asked anything besides housing, all that. Let's go for energy, I guess, first. Under Trump, the gas prices were at 6.7% for the inflation. Once the Harris-Biden administration came in, it was, let me find it, 38.2%. That goes for electricity, fuel oil, and natural gas as well.
This is the
All
prices
those
or the
being in the 4 to
inflationary
5%.
pressures? Sorry, I'm just writing it down.
Right.
Wait,
So,
I'm asking, are you talking about the prices or are you talking about the inflationary pressures?
I think that prices would have to do with this one. This is the price chart.
Okay. I got oil prices.
So fuel oil was 5.1% under Trump, and under Harris Biden, that was 37.4%. So moving kind of out of that, we've got a couple more things: transportation, groceries, which I know that you said besides food, which is coming down, like you said, which I think we can both agree is kind of what happens on either side when the election times come around. Prices just tend to go down for favor. So at transportation is where we were at. Sorry, at public transportation, the highest inflation rate we had under Trump was 14.6% for that, and then we were up at 17%, which by numbers isn't too much. And transportation didn't really get hit too hard besides anything in new cars. We were at 0.2 inflation percent with Trump, and for the rate at Harris Biden, we were at 17.9%. This is all under like government official website, by the way, just so you know. I think the craziest one to me was probably the food at K through 12 schools. The inflation rate under Trump during his term in presidency was 9.3%, and during Harris Biden, it went up to an astonishing 69.7%.
Can you link me what you're talking about, like either in DMs or in the stream discussion channel here? Because I don't know which you're talking about. The inflationary pressure from the like specific sectors, like specific products.
I think this would be in total as like a whole.
What does it say at the top of the graph that you're looking at?
Inflation by administration. That's just what I'm getting from the top of the graph.
Okay. Nobody contests that under Donald Trump's first 3 years and even under COVID that the inflation rate was low. The problem is that under Biden, the inflation rate started spiking before he was able to like even do policy. Okay, like
right.
The reason for the reason for
the first fiscal year, I think they can't get out of it.
Yeah, the things that caused inflation in the United States were stemming from a multitude of things, but we can point towards like 3 major things. There was a lot of deficit spending under Donald Trump, plus all the deficit spending he did during COVID, which, I mean, like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we can't blame Biden for that, right?
I don't think I blame Biden for that. No, I think you're correct. Like I said, I didn't like Trump previous to his first term. Just to kind of get that out of the way. Over my years, I've kind of grown into being a conservative or Republican. Or you see, I'm not really familiar with the terms of being it. I just know that this year very heavily I've gotten into it and kind of looked into
Sure, but
things.
like this is the problem that I have, right? When we look at the major like drivers of inflation, none of these things happened because of Biden, right? Biden just had to deal with them, and he dealt with them eh, better and faster, and we're at a better place on inflation today than any other comparable nation, any OECD country, any G6 nation. It doesn't matter. We're doing better than them. Why? Because of the policies that Biden has put into play. Like, why are we going to blame Biden when the inflation has already come
So
down
I
to
think
target
a lot of
levels?
the people, I think a lot of the reason people blame Biden is because of the way that.
I think it's
So
just temporal. It's temporal. Biden happened to be the president when the inflation hit as a result of things that happened under Donald Trump's presidency. No
I can't,
economist disagrees with this.
I can't deny you there were no economist disagrees with this. However, I believe that the time of these wars outspringing, along with the factors of Biden's kind of mental health declining as well as everything else, inspired people to kind of bring these things up. Which I like to look into the facts. I'm not here to tell you that Biden did this because he was just in office when it happened. The only things that I really think he did that raised inflation a good bit in certain areas was closing our main pipelines. And then when I remember when the Ukraine war first started, they were going to sign a peace treaty. Zelensky was going to sign a peace treaty with Putin for some kind of deal. I'm not sure what the other it was, but Biden himself told him not to sign it. So that's why we still have this war going on out of shipping billions of dollars out. I don't think that that could have helped any more than it was, because out of
Really
the
quick,
fiscal year when
just
you
for
set that
the
budget,
when
you're
you
sending out,
you
if
you
I'm
brought up
correct, I
the
think it was
oil
like
thing.
$125 billion.
1 second. You said under Trump we were doing better with oil and that we were pumping more oil out of the ground.
Well, yeah, because when we're using our natural gas from allied countries, our oil from our country, it's cheaper in house. That's kind of the same way it's worked
Not
under every other.
necessarily, not necessarily, but like even like before we get into like the econ of like shipping crude oil to different places that are able to refine it and
Right.
shit like that. Right now we are producing more oil than we ever have under Joe Biden, even more than Donald Trump, whose peak was 12,994 thousand barrels a day. And under Biden right now on this current, or at least in August of this year, 13,401. So Biden has increased oil like what Donald Trump was able to do.
I'm just looking at that right now, just
Yeah,
as
I just looked up
correction.
U.S. oil production over time. I think it was it was the first link, U.S. Energy Information Administration. I click on that. It shows the spike under Donald Trump. He did increase oil from where it was, and then it dropped off precipitously under because of COVID, and then it has inched back to its highest level that it's ever been under Joe Biden.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the same thing. I'm looking at the same thing too. I didn't really come here to call you wrong. Like I
Yeah,
said, I wanted to kind of get to debate with you, just because when I came into your chat, you were kind of going in on that one guy, and then I asked the question. I was like, okay, it might be a better idea to just leave this alone. And then you invited me to talk, so I actually wanted to pull up some facts, and I appreciate you actually putting that on me. So, uh, yeah, no, I can agree with you there 100%. Just reading what you're reading and going over it.
yeah, this is the problem that I have when I start going in on people in chat. It's because they're saying things I know to be untrue, things that I know for a fact, like that I can pull
So,
up
what
data
do you
with like a
think?
simple Google search.
Right. So what do you think, however, about the funding of all these different wars, say in the Middle East, the Ukraine region, and just in total, like the response from other countries we've had with our economy based on that? Like, how much do you think that's affected our economy in the last couple of years, I guess, since the wars about broke?
The Russian invasion of Ukraine has definitely hurt the U.S. economy for a short bit due to the oil crunch that happened in Europe. Other than that, it hasn't. Neither of these conflicts have hurt our economy in any way, shape, or form. The money that we're sending over to Ukraine is like we're not sending. I think like 90% or higher of the amount of aid that we've sent them is physical materials that we were going to have to blow up here at home for a higher cost than just shipping them over to Ukraine, right? It's not money. Like these are non-fungible things. You can't just like say, oh, well, we have, 400,000 ATACMS missiles. We're going to send those over. Well, that would be a blessing to them, but, we have 4,000 ATACMS missiles. We're going to ship those over to Ukraine. Oh no, now our GDP has gone down. No, like we had 4,000 ATACMS missiles that were close to their expiration. We were going to have to ship them off to like Lockheed Martin or some other, whoever produces them, to dispose of them safely here at home because they only have a certain shelf life before they start losing efficacy. So we were sending those over to Ukraine. Those aren't hurting our economy whatsoever. If anything, we're saving money by sending missiles over to Ukraine.
The only way I disagree there is, so if you remember back when the Tomahawk missile stopped being continued because it was about a 1.7 to I think $1.8 million a piece to produce.
Yeah.
We started switching to cheaper, cost-effective long-range missile equipment, and once we started hitting that line, we started pumping them out by numbers, effectively increasing over what we spent on the Tomahawk missiles, because under Obama's presidency, I'm pretty sure we had 10,000 made Tomahawk missiles or so in his time. And by shipping these out, essentially, how I see it is, if we're spending all this money to make one weapon for the U.S.'s defense budget, which honestly is pretty damn high, considering it's always been one of the highest budgets you get in the United States. When we send all of that over there, we're essentially wasting resource, wasting the money that we use to build it for home defense or homeland defense, or even just sending out to our allies to be able to use it where they need it. In general, I feel like a lot of that money that is taxpayer money that funds a lot of these departments, it was wasted on pretty much genocide. They said it the best out there. They don't really portray the Ukraine war the best right now because the Ukrainians have been honestly getting their ass kicked. They're a small country. They've been dwindling in numbers since the last 4 years the war started. And
well, I mean, it's been 2 years, right? Because they invaded in 2022, right?
22?
Yeah, they invaded in 2022.
22?
I mean, unless you're talking about like the invasion of 2014 and Russia sending soldiers in since then.
What, the annexation of Crimea?
Yeah, the annexation of Crimea, and they also invaded the Donbass when the militias there that they were funding weren't cutting it.
I just believe that we've been funneling money into kind of a pointless meat grinder, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're sending all this stuff that we could possibly...
I'll tell you why it's not pointless, all right? So there's two major things, right? We can, the implications for Taiwan and the implications for Russia just going and doing land domination warfare, which is unheard of in the modern world, all right? So on that second point, let's start with that. We don't want to encourage or allow other nations to think that they can go through and just bully smaller nations, especially ones that we have good relationships with, that we have partnerships with, et cetera, and make it seem like we're going to back out of deals with people that we've, made deals with. That would be like a really bad look for America. Shows that we don't have, the gumption to actually stand with our allies. We also don't want Russia to feel like they can just like invade Ukraine unanswered, because we have allies that they're looking at next, like Poland, like the Baltic states. Those countries are super scared of what's coming next if Ukraine falls. Like there's like immediate in that region reason for us to be funding Ukraine, right? Russia is openly antagonistic towards the United States. They openly with our information space and lie to American citizens so that we become ungovernable, right? It's the same tactic that they did in Ukraine. It's the same tactic that they did in Georgia. It's the same tactic that they did basically every single place that they've gone in and just like the entire country up. They want to make that country ungovernable so that they can go in and take over. So like that's point number one. Number two, when it comes to Taiwan, if we abandon Ukraine after, like a country that has a a rail network that goes into allied countries where we can easily give them munitions to defend themselves, right? Someone that we said that we were going to help them defend themselves. What kind of message does that send to Taiwan? What kind of message does that send to China when they're...
Well, is Taiwan signed under NATO? I can't remember if they are or not. I'll
No,
have to check.
but that doesn't matter for this conversation, because the entire world, in like especially the United States, we have a vested interest in making sure that Taiwan is allowed to continue to exist as it is right now, because they produce most of the world's semiconductors. The only reason me and you can talk to each other right now is because we're talking on devices that are filled with semiconductors. Our entire military is built off of machines that have semiconductors in them so that we can communicate and be effective on the battlefield. And if China takes over Taiwan,
so I agree with you there. If Taiwan is the important, why wouldn't we focus most of our to defending Taiwan instead of the Ukraine?
Well, we already are focusing on that. Biden's foreign policy in the Pacific has led us to become allies with people that we would have never thought we were going to be allies with, because China is such a unique danger to that area, right? Vietnam is now a partner with the United States for peace in the Southeast Asian theater.
As of September 20th, just to kind of fact check where you said that we have been sending, we have been focusing it there. So as of September 20th of 2024, the U.S. is in its final stages of sending almost $570 million in security to Taiwan, meaning which I think would be like land-to-air missile capabilities, other stuff like that.
Land-to-air and surface-to-surface missiles and shit like that, yeah.
Ukraine, give me one moment. How much aid?
A couple billion.
Supplied.
Couple tens of billions.
Couple tens of billions, yeah. I'm pretty sure we're in. The last time I saw it, the last amount of money we sent them was $8 billion.
Yeah,
for
something like that.
The smaller country that doesn't provide as much, it seems almost as a waste of money when we, like you said, have somebody as Taiwan that produces for the rest of the world.
Well, again, like that just like leads back to the entire first part of the conversation and to the first half of the second part of the conversation, right? So the first part of the conversation was, what kind of message, what kind of like world do we want to live in? Is it one where people are going around and like doing conquests of land for like land growth for their country, because it's what Russia's doing in Ukraine. They want to take the entirety of Ukraine so that they can turn them into a client state. That doesn't bode well to any of our allies for trust in the United States, that we would defend them, since we had such a close partnership with Ukraine leading into the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Like, why would we defend them?
The only reason we have any kind of relations with them to begin with is because of the I'm not even going to try and say the name because I know I'm going to butcher it.
The Maidan Revolution?
No, not the Maidan Revolution. We also stuck a nuclear power plant in their
Zaporizhia?
Yeah, Zaporizhia.
Well, I thought that has been there since the Soviet days.
It has been there since the Soviet days. However, once the age of the Soviet Union kind of came around and collapsed, the U.S. started speaking with Ukraine and was like, "Hey, we can supply the stuff for Zaporizhia." I believe is how you just said
Zaporizhia,
it.
yeah. It's totally fine. I get you.
Thank you so much, dude. That thing looks like somebody dragged their hand across keyboard. Sorry, my wife's chasing the cats around, so I'm trying to keep one contained.
You're totally fine, man.
We had sent out pretty much offers to Ukraine saying, "Hey, we'll supply you guys with the coolant, reactor cores, whatever you guys might need, in exchange for letting us keep a base of operations in that area of that Donbass." So when they stuck out their operations in that Donbass region, we were able to effectively spy on Russia from right over their border. We've had good ties with Ukraine, but it's been pretty much a parasitic relationship just to be able to spy over the border of Russia and send people in closer. Because we're allowed to go to Ukraine once you're allowed to go to Ukraine, and then once you slip into the border of Russia, you really ain't going to get stopped. You're 200 plus miles from it, maybe.
I don't understand what the problem here is.
So we stuck that there, and all of a sudden NATO or Ukraine wants to turn around and become a NATO ally. Putin's like, okay, what the you guys have this spy station out here in this Donbass region of Ukraine, but we can't spy on you guys with any other territories. Like, we can't put a surveillance camera in Mexico and stare over at you guys and see what you're doing.
Actually, they could if
Essentially,
they
like, think about it like this.
if they
Your
wanted
neighbors
to.
all have your neighbors all
Hold
have
on, really
essentially.
quick.
Yeah, you're good.
They absolutely could. They could if Mexico was okay with that, but Mexico is not okay with that because they like us more than they like Russia.
Yes, but what I'm saying is if they were to do that, the rest of us using NATO power would absolutely decimate them.
Not true. I don't think that we would invade Mexico. No, I don't think that that's the case. It's like, again, like Russia doesn't get to dictate the foreign policy of Ukraine any more than we get to dictate the foreign policy of Mexico. Anything that we try to like set up with Mexico to influence their foreign policy, say like on the border, is going to have to be done through, like mutual like agreements and, signed out policy that we agree to do. We don't have any kind of sovereignty over Mexico. Russia doesn't have any sovereignty over Ukraine. Russia doesn't get to say whether or not Ukraine gets to join NATO or not, unless you want to live in a world where bigger countries can just like walk up to smaller countries and say, oh, actually, you're part of our empire now. Then
I don't think we should live in a world like that at all by any means. But it's sad to see Ukraine getting smacked by such a larger power. And the only thing that they can get is a couple of older guns from, different helping states. And us being the number one country that has supplied them, it's kind of, you've got to see it in the terms of like money-wise for everybody else. The place will still exist.
The place will still exist, but like, would you accept if like China were to invade the United States and then our allies, like they kind of like sold us out and we lost everything from like California to mid Texas, because like at the end of the day, we just couldn't fight on our own against such a large foe. All of our allies sold us out. Do you think that like we would be okay with the fact that like at the end of the day, half of our country got taken from us?
No, I don't think we would be okay with it. I don't think
but
anybody
it still
would be
exists.
Okay with it,
but it still exists.
Yeah.
That was the argument. But yeah,
yes,
but that doesn't matter
that's
because people don't care. People don't care. People don't care about that. People care about like the justice aspect of it, right? People want there to be a just end to a war. People want the good guys to win. They don't want the bullies to win. And at the end of the day, who is the bully here? Is it the United States for entering into a mutually agreed upon deal where the Ukrainians got something good out of it? The United States got something good out of it? Nobody else it has any say in that agreement because it's a bilateral agreement between two states, right? Nobody else gets to have a say in that. Like if you made a business deal with someone and you said, all right, I'm going to pay you $50 for, said services. And they're like, yeah, I will do said services for $50. And then someone else comes in and says, no, actually, you're not allowed to do that because I don't like the fact that you're doing this kind of business. Do you think that that is just? No, nobody would want that.
Not just, but is it going to happen? Yes. And that's what I'm willing to accept. You know what I'm saying?
But here's the thing. It doesn't, it's not going to happen. It doesn't have to happen. The only way that it would happen is if we cede our place in the world as the world leader, if we cede our place in the world as the, person to go to when shit gets up. We are the world leader when it comes to anything regarding, policing of certain things, right?
Right.
And why would we cede that ground when I think that we've made some mistakes, but by and large, the more that I learn about our foreign policy, like over the course of United States history in the modern age, like a good chunk of what we did, we were like the good guys, especially, with the exception of the Iraq War. Don't get me wrong, with the exception of the Iraq War.
I was talking to a vet the other day and he said Vietnam is where we really fucked up. It's just because we sent a bunch of kids that were I'm 22, almost 23. They probably sent kids that were younger than me by 5, 6
Oh yeah,
years
they were sending
ago of war in
18
a
year
place
yeah,
that
they were
were,
sending 18-year-olds over there. Yeah, like Vietnam was
yeah.
a shit foreign policy decision. And like it got shittier the longer that we decided not to have like a good strategy there. But like we like post Cold War, with the sole exception of the war in Iraq, I would defend the war in Afghanistan like till the cows came home. All right, like there's
I don't know. I feel like the war in Afghanistan versus the war in Iraq,
the war in
a lot of
Afghanistan
that
is
was
where the
just to
guys
invade
that
the
bombed
Middle
us.
East.
Well, the guys that blew up the Twin Towers were in Afghanistan. They weren't in Iraq. There was no reason for us to go into Iraq except for
Right,
right.
right.
So like there was
At the
an
same time, though,
actual
when
reason.
do you believe in the idea that our president had something to do with 9/11?
No, not at all. There's been no evidence that has been presented to me that is convincing at all.
Well, just on the basis that I am, uh, that's where my stemming of it comes from where both were kind of
Think
pointless
about
because
how unhappy you're
I
making
think
the
about it as
Taliban, or I'm sorry, Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda, they worked so hard to like come up with that plan, and they came out and took responsibility for it immediately. Osama bin Laden even made a whole manifesto explaining why he did 9/11, and then like we're just gonna just like take that from them. We're gonna take that from them, and we're gonna put it on our own government. No, that like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever for us to do that to ourselves, even at the
I mean, it
time.
makes enough sense when you factor in what we've done before, you know. When I think it was Unit 731 from the Imperial Japanese Army was doing all that testing on a bunch of people, and like
Yeah, that was pretty
they're the
rough.
reason we know the body percentage of water and stuff like that. Uh, I don't put it past them because we
Wait, we didn't
let
do that
those
though.
men
That was
get
the
away with
That
war
was like
crimes.
the
For me.
crazy like pseudo-fascist imperial Japanese military that did that. Why would we like be involved in that whatsoever? Why are we putting that on us? They
I
were
mean, we nuked them, didn't we?
I mean, yeah, we nuked them because they bombed us first, and then they killed a bunch of our dudes, and they were raping and killing and experimenting on all the Asians in mainland Asia. Like, why is that our fault? Why
Well,
does
I'm not saying it's necessarily our fault,
but like
but
here's
the
a
implications of us forgiving countless war crimes on the basis of, oh, this provides us information on,
I mean, I
just
don't know if
science
we
in
I
general.
don't know if we forgave those things because we had military tribunals and prosecuted, and
None
put
of the
to
guys from
deaths.
Unit 731 were ever on that tribunal. You can actually fact check me on it.
Well, I mean, I'll believe you for that. Like, I again, there's not 100% of everything that we've ever done has been like the perfect justice thing. Like, they probably like stole some of those scientists maybe, and like just like they did with the Nazis, just like the Soviets did. They stole scientists and said, we won't send you to the gulag if you help us work on our space mission shit, right? Or on our nuclear shit.
So you're actually a very sensible, like, when I first came into your stream, I was kind of like a bit skeptical because, like I said, you were kind of going in a little hard on that guy. And I'm not one that likes to talk about politics super hardcore and like just the history of what made things kind of come to what they are now so hardcore because I like gaining actual facts. And if I can learn something from you, that's kind of why I talk to you. I
Yeah,
think that
absolutely.
we actually agree on a lot more things that I realize. We just have two kind of different opinions on how the country should be ran, just with the same goal of where we should be at. And I think that's what's kind of missing now as we've been sitting here talking, I agree a lot with you and you've made a lot of points that I agree with and I feel like I've kind of said some things that you agree with and it
Yeah,
just
you don't
kind of
sound
shows
like
me
totally unreasonable. Here's like where this is like what I've talked about, like leading up to the election and thinking about what happened during the election afterwards. Like, I started off as a socialist, like a idiot. I was like super hardcore. I read socialist theory. I got into a lot of arguments with Nazis. I read fascist theory. I know a lot about political theory from the
talking to a
extremes.
fascist, talking to a hardcore fascist is something else.
It can be fun sometimes. Sometimes it can be absolutely infuriating. But like I like I've progressed over the course of the past 4 years, by like learning new things, being presented with questions that I couldn't answer when it came to the economics, I had to move away from socialism. I mean, like, I will change my opinion when given better information. Where I'm at right now is pretty set in stone. It has nothing to do with like a specific ideology or anything like that. I have a base set of principles that I have always held.
You have a moral code that you live by. You have a base set of principles in your head that you stick strictly to unless you're proven otherwise.
Yeah. And if the contradicting information shows me that whatever policy would actually play more into those baseline principles that I have, then I'll change my opinion to that, right? Like, I want people to have a better economic outcome. I want people to have opportunity. I want people to be able to live comfortably, right? Like, these are like some of the base, like, economic, like, at a very, very baseline level. But like, it feels like, and this is why I go so hard on the Trump people, they don't care about the policies that end up with that stuff. They just have this feeling that something bad is happening with the economy. They have this feeling that, the Democrats are lying to them. They have this feeling, but like, no matter how much I like try to fact check and see if they're telling the truth, and sometimes they aren't. There are some times where the Democrats say something that's stupid, and I say we need to stop that. The reason
I didn't pull my vote for Kamala this year, and I tell people this the entire time I voted, my parents have always been kind of hardcore right-wing Democrats, and or not Democrats, but Republicans. And I told them this year, I was like, listen, if Kamala, spoke the way and handled herself the way that Trump did, because here's kind of where I fell short with Kamala. She insulted Christians, which obviously I am. I'm not going to go into religion because that's a whole different topic on itself.
Question: What did she say negative towards Christians?
She was at a rally, and I understand you can have hecklers and you can have people who are talking shit to you in the front row. But when someone says Jesus is king, it might not have to be your religion. You don't have to acknowledge that person if they say it. You're at your debate. You're there to speak. They're not there to speak. You didn't have to go out of your way, look at that person and say you're at the wrong place. I kind of thought that she was a well-spoken person until I heard that, and I was not very intrigued by it anymore, because when you take one of the founding things of this country away from the sole reason people vote, it just seems seems kind of counter.
I'm reading. I found exactly what you're talking about. They were saying Jesus Christ is king and Jesus is Lord and stuff like that. They were interrupting her speech, and I don't think it mattered what they were saying. She was going to say what she said. I don't think it had anything to do with her Christian faith at all.
Well, do you believe that going out of her way to tell him that he was at the wrong rally was the right idea?
Probably, yeah. That's what Donald Trump does every single time that there's hecklers at his. He says beat the hell out of them. So I don't know if that's I'm
gonna check you there. I've never heard him say beat the hell out of them, and I've heard.
Do you want me
to
show you a clip right now? Because I was an adult. I know that you're much younger than me. I was an adult already when Trump was running the first time, and he said,
"Would you mind mentioning the clip? I'll go ahead and look it up."
He said something along the lines of, beat the hell out of him. If I was down there, he'd be leaving in a stretcher, something along those lines. And you can find the clip.
All right, let's see. Get him the hell out of here. Knock the crap out of any protesters with tomatoes. Here we go. Hold on, let's see if this is the correct one, because it might be what you're talking about, but the video title I'm looking at is Trump asked fan to knock the crap out of any protesters with tomatoes.
Here, I'm looking too.
This is the day we take our country back. Remember that. This is the day we take our country back. So I got a little notice, in case you see, the security guys, we have wonderful security guys. They said, Mr. Trump, there may be somebody with tomatoes in the audience. So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously.
That clip right there?
That's one of them. There was another one where he said, oh, shit. This was from November 2nd. Donald Trump threatens to knock the hell out of people over a faulty mic. That's not what I'm looking for. Let me see here. Let me see.
You said I'm seething, I think. I'm looking at the same one. I'm going over what you just said as well, because I actually enjoy going over this with two people, just kind of different views. Yeah, Trump has weird meltdown over mic issues. Let's see the video. It's right here. This is from Rolling Stone, which already doesn't like Trump in general.
God, there's so many examples that I'm finding of like him saying someone should get the hell knocked out of him for protesting at his rallies. I'm sorry if you think that her saying you're at the wrong one.
Throw tomatoes at me, I'm gonna tell you to beat the shit out of him too if you see him.
Okay, well then you can't get
mad.
But here's the thing: you can't get mad at Kamala Harris then for saying, "I think you're at the wrong rally" when someone interrupts her speech. She wasn't saying, "Also, you're a dumb Christian."
Didn't necessarily interrupt Trump. What he was told by the Secret Service was that the dude was maybe out there with tomatoes, so he let the rest of the rally know. He said, "Hey, if you guys see this guy about to throw a tomato, knock the shit out of him." And I can kind of completely agree with that. To the point of her saying that. But like, here's the thing: she could have just ignored the guy.
No, she couldn't have, because he was disrupting the entire thing. She did the same thing to leftists too, who were going there and like crying about Gaza. You can't like say, huh?
Where's that clip?
Oh shit. That clip. I mean, Google Kamala Gaza protesters, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but.
All right, let's see. Kamala Harris addresses Gaza protesters at a rally.
Like she wasn't attacking that guy for his Christian faith. She was saying you should go to the other place.
That was one of the smaller reasons, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. You know what? I can agree with that. There was just a few other things that got me. She was talking about no active military members that are in active combat zones when we do have people that are out in active combat zones.
Okay. This one I can almost understand. I can almost understand like that criticism, but the problem is there's like a difference between like what we would like colloquially call an active combat zone and what, you know, someone who's in government would call an active combat zone. There have been, you know, strikes from like Iranian-backed militias against U.S. bases, especially since the Israel-Palestine war started popping off, right? This happens every time the Palestinians decide to start doing shit with Israel, and Israel starts to bomb Gaza, all right?
Every single time. Generational war.
Yeah. But, like, are those considered active combat zones? Because, like,
I believe so, yes, because if you can be close enough to be artillery shelled instead of hit with a long-range weapon, then yes, I would consider that an active combat zone, especially if the people there already particularly have a hatred towards you and already know if they see you that
are our troops who are based in South Korea in an active combat zone because they're within military or they're within artillery range of the North Koreans?
I would say so, yeah, especially if North Korea is already actively making prompts towards South Korea about war.
Well, they do that constantly, but they don't.
Pretty consistently. The joke I like to make is North Korea threatens us at least once a year with a nuke.
Yeah, I mean, like, whether you think they're a paper tiger or not, like, the definition of what constitutes an active combat zone at this point is like becoming like wider and wider until like anyone who's like anywhere near an enemy nation
would be something like Fallujah, Desert Storm, stuff like that. What I would deem an active combat zone is when you can just kind of randomly get into combat throughout your patrolled areas, because it just does happen. For them to say that it's not combat.
See, for me to think, like, my initial like genuine first thought when I hear active combat zone is like
dudes storming a building.
Yeah, like there's already combat happening. Like this is an active combat zone. There is like fighting happening.
When you get dropped in an AOC for the most part, or active combat zone, when you get dropped off there, you're not necessarily going to immediately get into gunfights. You'll have time to...
Yeah, because that would be stupid to put our guys like in the middle of a firefight. Like yeah, yeah, of course.
So when you get dropped off in something like that, you're in a combat zone. When you're in an active war zone, you're getting dropped off with bullets around you. It's already flying.
Wait, hold on. No. an active war zone would be like the entire Middle East. Okay, during like from 2004 to I guess 2020 to 2014.
14
No,
is when
but
it was like really the worst.
well, it got better and then it got worse and then it got better and then it kind of got worse again. That area is super. But war zone implies like a broader theater of war. Like combat zone implies a more localized thing. This might be a definitional thing, but I don't think that when Kamala Harris was saying we don't have active military or like military units in active combat zones, I'm pretty sure we're talking about like we're expecting to be like shot at every single day. We're expecting to be bombed every single day. We're expecting to lose a guy every single day. Like that is what we were expecting during the entirety of the Iraq War.
Yeah, that's true. But as well as we've also sent out people to Ukraine recently with, let me pull up the system name for you.
Like advisors or?
No, it wasn't advisors. It was actual military members. They sent them out there with an anti-air system. There was like 100 members per unit that they sent out there.
In Ukraine or in Israel?
Yes, in Ukraine.
I have never heard this.
The Ukraine or Israel? Hold on.
Also, hey, just so you know, after we like get through this like subtopic here, I'm gonna drag you out, and I'm gonna invite anyone else who's deciding to question me in chat.
If I'm taking too long, please.
No, you're
really
totally fine. Like it's a nice conversation, but it's just
and to anybody in the chat
agree.
that's kind of been getting up his ass about his views, what I really want y'all to understand while we talk about this as well is this whole country was made to divide everybody. A two-party system is easier to control when you don't have everybody on the same wavelength. So just take your time and actually kind of listen to what he's saying. Don't take the heated reactions at face value and actually kind of sit down. And if you've got questions, talk to him, because he will go over them with you and correct himself. Our politics have become so convoluted within hating each other for the personal opinion of who we're voting for and not why we're voting. Everybody agrees that all this bloodshed up. There's not a single person in this chat that doesn't agree that. There's not a single person in this chat that doesn't agree that life is harder now. We all just been told by different people, hey, this person did it, or hey, this person did it. So stop hating just everybody else when you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Look into things before you start saying things on the internet that could leave a stain on you forever.
All right. Do you have the thing on the Ukrainian here? I can just look it up. U.S.
I think
troops...
it was I'm trying to remember the missile defense system name. It wasn't the Patriot. It wasn't a Patriot system. It was anti-missile system.
Are you talking about the American military contractors?
Yes, it was. It was in the Gaza Strip.
Okay, yeah, because in Ukraine it'd be fucking crazy.
We sent them THAAD missile systems.
Yeah, we sent those there to like shoot down missiles that Iran was shooting over.
Right. And I'd call that an active combat zone if you're out there shooting missiles down, because a lot of the times the things they target most with like that would be anti-air.
I would have to look at the timeline of when she said that versus what, because that happened like in the past like 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't know when she said that we didn't have any active any troops in active war zones.
I think she said that about, I think it was like a month ago. I'll be in your Discord as well to be able to like kind of talk back and forth with you as well on these things and send you some of these links to what I've been reading off of.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to post more links in my Discord. Like the interesting articles is the good place to put those.
Sweet. But yeah, man, I want to give other people the chance to talk and everything. I'm going to kind of sit down with my wife for the rest of the night. But if you want to look into some of that, man,
yeah, 100%.
It's up to you, but I appreciate you kind of sitting down and having a talk with me that wasn't fully insulting me, because that's why I've had a hard time this voting season, is finding somebody who won't call me a Nazi, fascist, Zionist piece of shit for what I believe, and just somebody who'd actually sit down and talk to me. So I appreciate really everything that you talked to me about today.
Yeah, 100%. And you're always welcome. If there's something that you think that I said that was incorrect, if you see a video that gets put out from my editor or anything like that, and I'm just being completely unhinged and unfactual, you're always welcome to jump into the call again. All right, bud?
Yeah, sounds good, man. Hey, I hope you have a blessed night, man. I appreciate you talking to me again.
All right, catch you later.
Catch you later, brother.
Bye.
Bye.